Welcome to the Thrive Member Spotlight. Today we are talking to Erik Smith with Inclusivity. Hey, Erik, thank you so much for sitting down with me today. You know that I've been a big fan of your work for a long time, long before either of us were here at Thrive.
Right.
But you know me and you know things that are important to me, but tell the listeners and the viewers a little bit about the services that Inclusivity provides and why they're so vital in our day and age these days.
Absolutely. So my name is Erik Smith, managing member of Inclusivity LLC. We're a full-service consulting firm with a cultural competence lens. And what that means is that we look at everything from the perspective of intersectionality, who's at the table, who's not at the table, and ensuring we're in the most inclusive environment that's practical, and that allows businesses, organizations to thrive.
I love that. Goodness knows we need that these days, right? And, you know, you and I have talked a lot about community and diversity and what that means. And here at Thrive, I've always been really proud of creating a diverse membership, not just racial diversity, but different ages, different backgrounds, different nationalities, different ethnicities, different industries. So tell me in your words a little bit, why is it important to have a community filled with a lot of different voices?
It's a great question and a great perspective. The reality of it is that with the presence of diversity, plus the practice of inclusion, is the context for innovation. And if you're in an equitable environment, it creates a space where people are allowed to bring in their full selves. They're also allowed to contribute in a manner that's most comfortable and being able to bring their best to the table. What that inherently does, it brings different perspectives to the table in order for you to have a level of differences, different perspectives, so that you can get to the absolute best. Because the idea of innovation is not a straight line. But without conflicting opinions, people that are pushing the envelope, you really don't get the best out of a situation, out of a product. If you think about a great product like an iPhone, that was definitely not linear. But it took a number of perspectives in order to disagree enough to get to an incredible product that people love to use.
You know, I love that, and it's something we don't talk about enough, right? It feels really comfortable to surround yourself with yes people and to have that echo chamber to feed back your views to you. But you know, as a person who's really vested in tech and in that innovation ecosystem here in our region, it's a great reminder that a lot of times we need those disagreements, right?
Mm-hmm.
We need to intentionally put ourselves in those uncomfortable situations and hear the voices that we don't agree with in order to propel ourselves forward. What's a great example that you can come up with where you've helped an organization exist in that uncomfortable space and then ultimately thrive on the other side?
So I'm not going to name the organization, but there's an organization that's here locally that does a lot with advertising. And one of the things that, as one of their leaders, especially in the DEI space, at least at that time, what I wanted them to understand is that more than white women, mid-40s, soccer moms, coupon. So the idea was, if we can open this up to different groups of people, you would understand that more than one segment of the population coupon. As they start to become more comfortable with the idea and kind of get out of their own way, they had incredible results in terms of
coupons, like clipping coupons?
Like clipping coupons, things you may get in the mail in an envelope. So those different situations allowed them to now focus, engage in those particular segments of the market specifically and culturally relevant. So it made it more exciting for them because they were making money, obviously, and more exciting for the consumer because they felt it was very relevant to who they are.
So that's fascinating. So was this organization then just sort of demographically targeting the white middle-aged soccer moms and then realized they had a whole other potential market that they hadn't even thought of?
Absolutely.
That they could, and that the couponing was a way to address that market?
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
And it's amazing just because it was perspective. It was a lack of perspective. And once they were able to open themselves up and realize that it's okay, then things are allowed to change. And that's the idea of the work that I do. The work that I do that allows people to thrive in companies, organizations, even communities, is to better understand how the products, services, or even your constituents want to feel and know that they are represented and that they are able to contribute to society, to their organization, to their business in a way that's authentic. Mm-hmm. So once you release that space, release that energy, then amazing things start to happen.
Oh. What's another amazing thing that you've seen happen? In any space, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be business, but I know you're very active in the community as a whole, involved in lots of other organizations, nonprofit organizations that really serve to give voices to those who don't typically have representation.
So it's interesting. I'll just talk about my experience here at Thrive. So when I first got here and we started having conversations, one of the things you said is like, we're a little bit homogenous. We'd like to, have a little bit more different perspectives and different people roaming the halls, having conversations, engaging, kind of like the funkiness of St. Pete and how we really do it here. What's been amazing is that it's happened organically because of what you desired. So people started to come through. They started to feel comfortable. They were allowed to bring their full selves and be who they are here. So organically, you saw the change. And I think this is part of the challenge and the incredible opportunity that we have here at Thrive in St. Pete and as a country. If we can stop being concerned about our differences and realize we have way more in common than we have that's different, life will be a whole lot better, a lot easier, and actually we can truly thrive as a community.
I love that so much. I just got chills. That's so great. I think we are so lucky in St. Petersburg that we live in a community that really understands and embraces these concepts. Obviously, not everybody, but we are really lucky to be in a space that is supportive of those concepts. I know the one thing that I see as a business challenge for a lot of the companies that are based here in Thrive, and you and I have talked about this too, and in fact are going to address this directly soon, is the generational divide. How do we talk to young people? How do we motivate? The young people seem to have their own language. I'm not saying this is what the truth is, but this is the feedback that we hear. I don't know how to talk to these younger people. I don't know how to motivate them. They don't seem to want to work. So what are some ways that we can address those divides and try to bridge those gaps?
Absolutely. And if we can look at it as opportunities to engage, so when we start to utilize words, and this is, to no offense, gaps, divisions, it creates more separation. So the idea of what are opportunities to really embrace all of these different generations in the workplace. For example, we have 5. So we have folks that are unable to retire, so they're in their 70s. So that's the silent generation, all the way through to 15-year-olds that are coming into the workforce, which is typically Gen Alpha. You have all these different perspectives in the workplace. One group is used to everything's paper-based and face-to-face. That's how I understand who you are. I can shake your hand. I can look in your eyes. That lets me know, and that allows me to get comfortable to know who you are. Someone's like, I don't need to see you at all. If you understand my language, then we're good. And now we have a point of connection. The interesting story is that my sons are 6 and 8. And, when I'm looking at their mom and we're talking and I'm giving her compliments, why are you rizzing on mommy, daddy? And I'm like, Riz, what? what Riz? What is that? So I had to go and look it up to figure out what exactly are you talking about. But as I started to look at slang and just how it's evolved over time, and the slang that perhaps I used was more engaging face-to-face and looking at different scenarios, pulling it from music, how younger folks are engaging with slang is through social media as well as through gaming. So this is coming from brain rot, which is an amazing, slightly strange kind of gaming, but a lot of the terminology that Gen Alpha is using is coming from gaming. So the point of this is, once we can understand the points of connection, then we're able to really explore what are the positives that they bring into the workforce. For example, Gen Alpha, they are digital natives. They don't really understand anything out of it being digital. So that means they're proficient in social media, they're proficient in gaming, they're proficient in engaging in that manner, but the generation is huge. You start to look at millennials change the game because of the sheer size of that particular generation. Additionally, they changed the game because they really said to corporate, if you want me, you're gonna have to engage with me. And corporate said, great, because you are the largest to be born, so of course we have to engage with you. From that perspective, it created a space and place where now the consumer drives the ship. And so now there has to be this reciprocal relationship of consumer and product creator and product evolution in order for businesses, organizations to be able to really have a strong foothold within their marketplace. As a result, it makes sense to understand each one of these generations and how they contribute, because these are going to be your new suppliers. These are going to be your new employees. These are also going to be your consumers. So to better understand them, instead of being irritated, annoyed with who they are, what they come to the table with, to better understand them is going to enable your business to grow and get better. Another piece of this is by better understanding them and how they do what they do is going to give you stronger relationships with your children, with your grandchildren, with your cousins, with your uncles, things like that. It's going to be helpful for us as a society. And I know I'm on a soapbox, pardon me. But the last thing.
That's why we're here.
Right. The last thing is when you start to look at this in aggregate, it allows you to really appreciate the differences, the dynamics, the diversity of just perspectives. A particular word, a particular song, some of the things that my sons listen to, I'm like, what is that? Then I find myself going, okay, wait a minute. All right, it's not that bad. All right, you can rock with that. So when you start to find the points of intersectionality and connection, it makes the process less painful, way less painful, but it allows you to appreciate the differences and the intersectionality that we have as a community.
I love all that. And listen, you can get on your soapbox with me anytime. I think maybe that's what this podcast should be. We'll call it the Thrive Soapbox.
There it is. There it is.
But you bring up such a valid point, and it's something that has taken me a long time in my years to really understand, and I'm trying to also coach younger people with this particular concept, which is instead of judgment, choose curiosity. Right? It sounds great to say, hey, don't judge, be open, be empathetic, be accepting. I mean, sometimes that's a heavy lift, right? We all aspire to be that enlightened, but when you are confronted with a situation or opinion of someone who is truly offensive to you, I don't know that it's a reasonable expectation for most people to reach out with compassion and empathy, right? So, but what you can do is not go the other direction, stay in the middle, and just have curiosity. And it doesn't need to be judgment on either way, good, bad, no reaction. Just tell me more about that. I want to find out more. I'd like to find out what makes you say that. And really encouraging curiosity. And I encourage that here at Thrive as well with members. If someone comes to me with an issue or a problem and say, hey, this person wronged me, and I say, that's curious. I wonder, have you had that experience before? I wonder what happened right there. Did you ask questions? And so I kind of send people back to say, hey, ask, find out more. And then at least we can come to our own conclusions if we ask questions, but just taking a beat from judgment, which leads me to my next question. So you're talking a lot, and I so value your perspectives on generations. It's so important for us to hear because I think it's something that a lot of business operators are struggling with at this moment. So I'm really excited for your Lunch and Learn, where we're going to give our members the opportunity to come free, share a meal, and really gain some usable tools for how to navigate some of these different generations that are in the workplace now. But in the interim, how do you balance the space where all of these generations are and the digital competency of the younger generation compared to the older generation, and where that lays over this intersectionality of what comes to the table when you have diverse views and people feeling safe and encouraged to express their ideas? And then how do we deal then with our cancel culture that then punishes people when they perceive that they have the freedom and the safe space to express a view and then are punished for that? That was a long-winded question, but you see where I'm going with that.
Absolutely. So at Inclusivity, one way that we've been able to navigate this at Inclusivity is we have the idea of high affirmation, high accountability. So we're going to affirm you. We're going to affirm you. We're going to love on you. We're going to embrace who you are. But when things are a little bit off or there's a perspective that's counter to our culture, we're going to call you out on it. And it's not about cancel culture. It's about accountability. Be accountable for your words. Be impeccable with your word. So with that being the case...
It's one of the 4 agreements.
Absolutely.
Be impeccable with your words.
Absolutely. So the idea of it is own your words. Be who you are. Come with your authentic self, but be open to understanding that we are going to be in a space and place where we're going to be true, authentic, engaging, and when challenges come up, we're going to address them head on. So cancel culture is a very interesting concept that folks have been uncomfortable with until they're able to do the canceling. Mm-hmm. Then it becomes very comfortable because if you're not like me, then you're no longer in the in group. So we have there's this idea of othering that occurs. Those people, not me, not my inner circle, and things like that. So how you work to combat that is really being in a space and place of empathy and understanding, curiosity, something that you say all the time. But another component to this that I feel is absolutely critical is to accept and expect non-closure.
expect non-closure.
Non-closure. Accept and expect non-closure. Meaning that there's going to be moments and situations where, okay, I'm going to have to agree to disagree. And even if you don't want to do that, I'm going to choose my peace and agree to disagree and exit the conversation. Once the conversation is no longer productive, it's time to stop. And that's where the challenges come with us as human beings, because we want to prove our point. We don't want to listen to understand. We want to listen to get out, to figure out what's the nugget that I can combat. What's the nugget that's going to get my perspective across? And that's not really helpful to a productive conversation. The idea of a productive conversation is it for to be a conversation that requires at least two people. It becomes a monologue when it's just you pontificating. So the idea of it is, how do you create a space and place where you can actually have a productive conversation, but understand where you are, most importantly, and getting a beat on where the other person is to realize this is no longer productive and step away. This would probably slow down the divorce rates.
Oh, absolutely.
As many funky confrontations that we have in social media would be to let it go. But it's hard to do that when
it's not satisfying, right?
No.
Not having closure feels
it doesn't
uncomfortable.
please the ego.
Yep. We don't get that dopamine hit of the yes, I won. Yes, this is good. Okay.
And there's a bit of adrenaline with that, but the reality of it is that once you are in a team dynamic, a true team dynamic, that doesn't help. If I win, you have to lose, that zero-sum game is challenging.
Right.
So the idea of it is, how can we create a space where we all win? How can we create a space where all perspectives are valued? And that's nothing negative with that. That's not weakness. That's being productive. Because now the resources that you're deploying as a business person are being used effectively because everybody's able to contribute in the manner that they best possibly can.
So let's talk about this for a second, because this idea of an abundance mindset, right, and not a scarcity mindset, in many ways runs very counter to the traditional structure of large corporate environments, right? We've seen in the past dog eat dog, right? You gotta outpace your coworker so you get that promotion, you get the good assignments, that you're preserving your job so you win and someone else loses. So I think that the writing is on the wall for most business people that this old model just is not successful for anyone. It's ultimately not successful for the corporation. And I think there's a lot of anecdotal evidence for the fact that companies that invest in their people and really create these safe environments also are providing themselves a ton more stability and opportunity for growth and success in a traditional way that those things are measured, right? So with that in mind, not necessarily within the world of the small business, but in the world of a larger business, how can you go into a large organization that has been operating on that traditional model and implement some changes that are more aligned with, we can all win together, we can all create a safe space, this isn't a zero-sum game?
Very interesting. It's loaded, especially in the belief systems that exist now, specific to cultural competence. And I'm going to say the words, folks: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Wow, the sky didn't fall. I didn't get hit with a bolt of lightning.
I was about to say, no bolts of lightning came through the window.
But what's interesting is that, and we at Inclusivity, we understand that those are challenging words, and we've made the necessary adjustments associated with it. But here's the reality, folks: still not going to get away from it. The core concepts are not going anywhere. The idea of ensuring that folks are able to come into the workplace, know that they belong, know that they can contribute fully, and aren't going to be persecuted for their perspectives. That's core diversity, equity, and inclusion concepts. It may seem like it's something else, but actually that's really what it's built on, is ensuring you have enough diversity in your space so you can get those great perspectives that are contrary, so that you can get the best possible outcomes, because you're asking questions that you typically would not. So if you're in a space of groupthink, no one pushes the envelope. Well, when you're in a space where I don't believe that, or that doesn't make sense to me, or that doesn't quite resonate with you, now you're looking at spaces and places and opportunities to where you can engage consumers that may not necessarily resonate with one person's perspective, but when all of that comes together, you have enough nuggets there that it allows for the consumer to really engage. So that's really practical and important. And here, there's a couple of other nuggets to consider. One, when you start to look at our world globally, there's more people of color than are white, non-Hispanic, simply stated. If you look at this country, United States, we start to look at strictly just census data. It's the same thing here. It's happening. So to better understand who your consumers are, to better understand the shifts that are happening within our generations, but also within our own population is going to be helpful because once you get in front of these trends, now you can be the trendsetter instead of getting dragged behind them and trying to adjust to everybody else.
I love that. It's and you know, right? I'm sure you do all the research and all the data. I've seen the research and the data that shows that organizations that are diverse and have lots of voices are objectively more successful
And
financially, yes, than those that are not. But I'm wondering from your perspective, how, even though the data is there, how open are companies now, like talking about today, not 4 years ago, but today, how open are companies to having those conversations? If you approach someone and say, I can help you with this initiative and create a situation that's better for your employees, your customers, and your company. I have all the data to prove it. And you sort of slip in that diversity word. Are you finding that companies are like, nope, I'm not good. I don't need that. Or are they continuing to be open and embracing the concept?
Oh, the D word is I might as well call the mama out of their name. That's just not happening. It's sad, but it's the reality. But just to dial back real quick, McKinsey Consulting, they have a bunch of information, data that supports the assertions that Brooke just mentioned, as well as Boston Consulting Group and Catalyst Group. So those are three places you can go, look them up. Uncle Google has everything and be able to find that information. But those are, and I believe McKinsey updates their content pretty regularly, and it's consistent. It hasn't changed much at all. So there is challenges right now, and a lot of it is, I'm gonna say it, political. And I'm not big into politics, but that's driving a lot of the discourse. And so the idea of it is that that's going to be for the moment, but you're still not going to be able to get away from the fact that you're going to have to hire people. And are you going to hire the best and the brightest? Or you're going to hire the available and not so dim? So to look for the best and the brightest, you have to inherently look at diversity. If you look at the available and not so dim, you can make it as homogenous as you want to, but that's not really saying you want to get the best and the brightest. And if you understand people, process, and product are the 3 P's to live by, you got to get the right people.
Say that again.
People, process, and product. You got to have a great product that people are going to want. There's people again. And you have to write the right people in-house in order to manifest your vision for that product. That's people again. And your process has to create space and places to maximize, which are going to be driven by people. So you can't get away from people.
And obviously having, again, as we were talking about, not having that echo chamber of just surrounding yourself with the people who agree with you, but intentionally bringing people to the table who may disagree with you, really being the crux of innovation.
And it's harder. It's a lot harder, even at Inclusivity, obviously because we're Inclusivity, we make a concerted effort to ensure that there's multiple perspectives at the table. And we're always asking, who's not here? And I think if companies were really interested and truly being able to connect in with their audiences, and some companies will say, like the one I mentioned earlier, well, our audience is this, and I'm no, it's not. Mm-hmm. It's that because that's what you choose and that's what you're comfortable with. But if you really look at it in aggregate, that is not who your total group of folks that want to engage with your products and services are. So if we're really honest about it, it's a lot broader, but it is much more difficult to go out and get that inherent diversity that you really need to really grow your business.
So I'm going to shift just a little bit away from business and talk about the nasty P word, politics, but not in a detailed way. Only because this is fresh on my mind, right? Mm-hmm. We've got elections coming up next year. And there's already talk, there's already discussion of people running for office. And there has been a ton of shift in the past couple of years of what's happening in our country and our communities. So what are you seeing as some of the opportunities and some of the challenges in the upcoming elections? And I'm thinking more on like a local, county, state level.
So I'm going to answer that in a very broad sense.
Oh, good.
And the idea of it is that I believe the success or failure of our nation, of our county, or even our beautiful little city is the willingness for someone to bring us together. The idea of division never works. It's a short-term strategy that's going to feel good. You're going to be able to get some things done, but for us to, I love this, for us to completely thrive as a community, as a city, as a nation, is going to require working together. But if we're always fighting, then there's no way for that to happen. Because now we're building up barriers. We're not building bridges. Now we're looking for a problem instead of allowing spaces and places for solutions to occur. We're not willing to listen anymore. Now we're just listening for sound bites so I can come back at you, as opposed to looking for spaces and places to engage for the betterment of society. The idea of civility is lost. To intentionally call people out of their names in different spaces and places at the highest level of politics puts us on par with countries that we have looked at like, okay, they're not as sophisticated as we are, or not as on the same level that we are. And
I mean, let's just call it what it is. Like, we look at these other countries and say, y'all are crazy.
and now they can say, and you're just like us.
Right, right.
So I think it's a different space and place and time, but I really would love for politicians to hold up a mirror and really look at themselves and say, did I really come into this work to do this? Is this really how I wanted to represent not only myself, but the people that voted for me? Is this really the best of me? And to really honestly I answer that honestly instead of out of fear. And I think that's what's ruling the day right now is fear.
It is a lot of fear, and I think we all feel it, right? And by the way, do you ever do any political consulting, or do you just deal with the private sector?
I'm open to doing any kind of consulting.
Right.
No one necessarily has come to me around politics or political consulting. I mean, that's something that I'm totally open to, no matter what side of the aisle that you're on, because the idea is someone, if not me, then who, is going to help to bring us together. It is extraordinarily challenging, and what pains me the most is I have to look in the eyes of my two young children, my 6 and 8-year-old black boys, and have to explain what they're seeing. And I have to explain, why are they saying that about each other? Why are they saying that about this woman? Why are they saying it? And how do you explain that to a child? That people are intentionally hurting other people. And that at the highest levels of authority, that's become the standard. It's painful. And so as long as I have breath in my body, I'm going to continue to do the work to bring us together. The thing at Inclusivity is that we drive engagement intentionally, using data to educate and inform to build bridges, not barriers. That's what we live by.
I love that. That's a great mission statement. Again, not to harp on the politics, but because it is something that's going to consume a lot of our attention here in short order, it's going to be interesting to me to see how candidates really reach out. I kind of feel like it's going to be one extreme or the other, right? That it's either going to be an embrace of some of the ideals that you're talking about, which is, I am here to talk about solutions. I'm here to connect with a large group of people, whatever that is. I'm not going to say the D word, but to a large group of people that may not be the same in whatever way we categorize that. Or it's going to be very focused, very charged. I'm going to talk to this little tiny group of people and go after those sound bites. And it's I'll be curious to see. I've always hoped that you would get into the political consulting realm, because I think you have a lot to offer and a lot of insights and a lot of data. I mean, you've been doing this a long time. How long have you been doing this work?
Wow. If I had to really look at it in terms of actually doing the work as Inclusivity, about 8 years. Actually doing the work in aggregate, and I'm 54, about 40 years.
Wow.
Because of the cultural context that I was raised in. So it's been a long time of doing this kind of work. So to get to your point, or your question, if I'm understanding correctly, what I think is going to be, it's going to be a combination of the two. There are going to be people that are going to just pander to their specific group of constituents that they're comfortable with, that's going to continue to create more division. What I honestly believe is that the American people, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, or what community that you're in, is going to get fatigued with division. It's going to be tiring. The idea of hating takes an extraordinary amount of energy. So at some point, when people are so tired of this, they're going to embrace the person that wants to bring us together. And a part of this is to hold out for that moment. But it's repeated in history over, and it's sad that we're repeating the negative parts of history. With this kind of division, it doesn't last a long time. It doesn't last a long time, and it actually thrives. It does not. The places and spaces where history and civilization has thrived is when people have come together. Show me a place in history where through division, now again, you could talk about, well, there were dynasties built, there were empires built, and all of them were destroyed because it was about a certain group of people being on top and subjugating another. But eventually, those that have been subjugated, they rose up and they ended the tyranny. So it's going to shift, folks. It's just a reality. So are you going to be a part of that solution, or are you going to continue to ride the wave of hate?
Well, obviously, here at Thrive, we want to be part of the solution, right? We're all about giving people opportunity to exchange ideas in a safe space, to be welcoming to all people, to create a space where someone can come in and see somebody like them and say, okay, I feel like I belong here, right? Because somebody looks and seems like me. I can't wait to really embark on this series that we're going to do with you, because I don't think that type of placemaking is a one and done. My work is never done here. I don't get to just say, okay, I'm good. I have a group of people who are, tick a lot of boxes. I don't need to do anything else. It is constant work to cultivate that, which is probably good for you. These are the things that keep you in business, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So what are, as a wrap up to kind of this conversation, what are 3 things that any business owner or professional can do, either in their personal life or their professional life, the 3 takeaways that they can do to invest in this future where we're all rising together, we're all thriving together?
So I'm going to encapsulate this in the 4 agreements. So be impeccable with your word. Be honest with yourself. Keep it real. Keep it 100. To be able to understand who you are, which can be challenging because we're always evolving. So sometimes not knowing who you are allows you to be influenced by things that may not be in your best interest. So really being impeccable with your word. Always do your best. Don't try to do too much or too less, too little. Do your best. Be authentic. Again, keeping it real, keeping 100. What can you do that really fits within who you are, and always do your best? Don't assume. Assume, you know how that breaks down into those 3 specific words. Don't assume. Ask questions. Be curious. And the one that is probably the key most important is don't take everything personally. Don't take anything personally. Hey, folks, it's not about you all the time. So the idea and where all of these challenges come is, were you talking about me? So it's all about me? No, it's not. So put your ego aside and realize that by not taking things personally, you're actually going to live a more productive and positive life, because now you're only focused on doing the things that are good for you, preserving your peace, and really walking the path that was laid for you. So if I could leave it with those 4, and those are very specific to business. If we could do this in businesses, we could all thrive.
I love this so much. I want to have a whole nother episode
Absolutely.
where we just talk about the 4 agreements.
We can do that.
And really practice those skills of not taking things personally. So brilliant. I mean,
very hard, but it's real.
really hard, especially since everything in our world right now encourages absolute ego-driven focus and
Immediate gratification.
Immediate gratification. But
All that.
that's going to be on the next episode.
Sounds
We get
good.
together. Erik, I love talking to you so much. You're such an asset to not only the Thrive community, but the St. Pete community and this world that we live in. I'm really, really proud to share space with you.
Always a
And
pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here, for all you do.
Thank you for
and
having
I
me.
can't wait for our series and our lunch and learns, and we'll wrap up after that and maybe bring on some people who attended and they can share their feedback.
Absolutely. We'd love to do it.
And that awesome.
See you October 10th. 14th.
All right.
14th.
One of those.
One of those.
Thanks, Erik.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.